The small research vessel drifted beyond the edge of charted space. Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The stars looked different here, arranged in patterns no human had ever recorded. Their mission was supposed to be a simple one: test the new faster-than-light drive, gather data, and return to Earth. But something had gone wrong with the final jump. "Any luck with our position, Sam?" Alex asked, turning to his science officer. Samantha Reeves shook her head, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Nothing matches our star charts. According to our instruments, we're over 3,000 light-years from our planned coordinates." The bridge fell silent. Earth was too far away to contact directly, and they had limited supplies. Engineer Paul Wright spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting an energy signature. It's unlike anything I've seen before." Before Alex could respond, the ship shuddered. A blinding light filled the view screen, and then darkness. When the systems came back online, they were no longer alone. A massive vessel, at least 20 times their size, loomed before them. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent glow that seemed to bend the light around it. "We're being scanned," Samantha said, her voice steady despite her wide eyes. "And they're hailing us. The computer is detecting a translation protocol." Alex straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, revealing a being with blue-tinted skin and large almond-shaped eyes. It spoke, and their computer translated. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves." Alex introduced himself and his crew, explaining they were explorers from Earth who had accidentally jumped too far. The alien seemed surprised by this information. "Humans, from Sol System." The alien conferred with someone off-screen. "You will be escorted to the Galactic Council station. Do not deviate from the course we provide." 2 days later, Alex and his senior officers stood before the Galactic Council, 12 representatives from different species, each seated on elevated platforms in a semicircle. The chamber was vast, with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. Hundreds of different alien species watched from viewing galleries. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms addressed them. "I am High Counselor Vex of the United Galactic Peoples. Your appearance is unexpected. We had no record of intelligent life evolving in the Sol System." Alex explained humanity's history, their development over thousands of years, their recent advancement into space travel, their hopes to join a larger community among the stars. The council members exchanged looks. Some seemed amused, others concerned. "Your species is remarkably young," said another council member, her skin shifting patterns as she spoke. "Most civilizations require millions of years to develop spacefaring technology." A stern-looking reptilian creature leaned forward. "They could be dangerous. Underdeveloped species often are. I recommend quarantine." Arguments broke out among the council until a dignified figure with crystalline features raised a hand for silence. "I am Excel Thor of the Verdarian Empire. I propose we follow protocol for first contact with developing species. I volunteer to serve as diplomatic liaison." The council voted, and Selthor approached the humans. "Captain Morgan, your species will be granted provisional status in our community. You have much to learn about galactic civilization." As they left the council chambers, Excelfor spoke quietly. "You should know that many here see humans as children, the youngest species we've encountered in 10,000 years. They will not treat you as equals." "We've faced that kind of thinking before," Alex replied. "We usually prove them wrong." Zelthor's crystalline features formed what might have been a smile. "That attitude is precisely why I volunteered. There is something interesting about your species." As they walked toward their quarters, Samantha whispered to Alex, "Did you notice how they kept staring at us? Almost like they recognized us from somewhere." Alex nodded. "I noticed, and I plan to find out why." Back in the council chambers, the reptilian counselor addressed his colleagues after the humans left. "There is something familiar about these humans, something that troubles me deeply. They are nothing, another counselor dismissed. Primitive newcomers, barely worth our attention. But the reptilian's eyes narrowed. That is what worries me. They should not seem familiar at all. 6 months after the first contact, Earth had changed. News of alien life spread across the planet, causing both wonder and fear. Ships from various alien worlds now orbited Earth, and a small alien embassy had been built in Geneva. Zelfor's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying a team of alien scientists and historians. Their mission was to learn more about this young species that had somehow developed faster than light travel in what they considered record time. Dr. Eric Daniels waited at the landing pad. As one of Earth's leading archaeologists, he had been chosen to guide the aliens through humanity's past. The shuttle's doors opened with a soft hiss, and Zelfor emerged, followed by 7 other aliens of different species. Dr. Daniels, Zelfor said, extending his crystalline hand. Thank you for agreeing to show us your world's history. Among the group was an elderly alien named Zintera. Her skin was pale gray, and her large eyes seemed to hold ancient wisdom. She moved slowly, leaning on a staff made of some unknown material. We will start with Egypt, Eric told them as they boarded a transport. Some of our oldest and most impressive structures are there. The next day, they stood before the Great Pyramid of Giza. The aliens scanned the massive structure with their devices, speaking quietly among themselves in their own languages. How old is this monument? Asked a purple-skinned alien with 6 fingers on each hand. About 4,500 years, Eric replied. Zintara moved closer to the pyramid's base, touching the stone with her long fingers. Interesting technique, she murmured. It reminds me of. Of what? Eric asked when she didn't finish. Nothing important, she said quickly, but her eyes lingered on certain carvings. They visited more sites over the next week. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, and finally, remote cave paintings in Australia that were over 40,000 years old. At each location, Eric noticed the aliens becoming increasingly quiet and exchanging troubled glances. Zintara took countless images and readings, her expression growing more concerned with each site. Later that week, Lieutenant Gary Peterson met them at a military museum in Washington. As a military historian, he had been asked to explain human warfare through the ages. These are replicas of weapons from different time periods, Gary explained, showing them everything from stone axes to medieval swords to modern firearms. A tall, insect-like alien named Krixven pointed to a formation diagram from an ancient Roman battle. This pattern, it is remarkably similar to the Battle of Seventh Moons. What's that? Gary asked. A famous battle fought by the Drelka species, long extinct now. Zelfor explained quickly. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. That evening in their private quarters, the alien scientists argued among themselves. Eric and Gary stood outside, pretending not to listen. The symbols at Göbekli Tepe matched those found in the ruins of Proxima IV. One alien insisted. And those cave paintings, the star patterns they show shouldn't have been visible from Earth 40,000 years ago unless... Enough. Zelfor cut them off. We will report only facts, not wild theories. After the aliens left, Zintara lingered behind. She approached Eric and Gary with a cautious look around. There is more to your species than meets the eye, she whispered. The Council believes humans are newcomers to the stars, but I have studied ancient civilizations for over 300 years. What I saw today troubles me deeply. What do you mean? Eric asked. Some patterns repeat across the galaxy. Similar technologies developing on different worlds, similar social structures emerging. But what I've seen here, she shook her head. It's not parallel development. It's memory. I don't understand, Gary said. Neither do I. Not fully, Zintara admitted. But I know where we might find answers. There are restricted archives on the galactic capital world. If you truly wish to know why some of us find humans so familiar, meet me at these coordinates in 3 days. Come alone and tell no one." She pressed a small device into Eric's hand and walked away, leaving the two humans staring at each other in confusion. "What do you think she meant by memory?" Gary asked. Eric looked down at the device. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." Captain Alex Morgan was not happy about the secret meeting. This could be a trap, he warned as their small shuttle approached the massive space station that served as the galactic capital. Eric adjusted his civilian clothes nervously. "I trust Xin Terra. You should have seen her face when she looked at those ancient symbols. She knows something important." Gary nodded in agreement. "Besides, we've been here for 3 days already, attending official meetings. If anyone wanted to harm us, they've had plenty of chances." They docked at a quiet section of the station. The halls were mostly empty, with only a few aliens giving them curious glances. Humans were still a rare sight here. Xin Terra waited in a dimly lit corner. She looked even older in the harsh station lighting. "You came," she said, relief clear in her voice. "Follow me quickly. I have only a short time window to access the restricted section." She led them through winding corridors and down several lifts. The deeper they went, the older the station seemed to become. The sleek, modern walls gave way to older materials that looked almost stone-like. "How old is this place?" Alex whispered. "The lower levels date back nearly 80,000 years, Xin Terra replied. "Few remember these exist anymore." They reached a heavy door covered in strange symbols. Xin Terra placed her palm against it and spoke words in a language their translators couldn't process. The door slid open with a groan. "The Grand Archives," she explained as they entered. "Most of it is accessible to scholars, but this section..." She pointed to a sealed doorway at the far end of the massive room. "That contains records deemed too sensitive or controversial by the First Council members." "And you can get in?" Gary asked. "I am one of the Keepers of Memory, a position almost forgotten in modern times. We maintain the oldest records." She approached the inner door and began a complex unlocking sequence. The room beyond was small, filled with data crystals and ancient scrolls. Xin Terra moved to a central pedestal and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing text in an unfamiliar script. "These are records of the progenitors," she explained. "A species said to have seeded life throughout the galaxy before disappearing around 50,000 years ago." She manipulated the controls, and an image appeared. It showed beings that looked remarkably human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head with 2 eyes and a mouth. "The resemblance is striking," Eric said quietly. "Yes, the official history claims the progenitors went extinct after a devastating war. But there have always been whispers of another story, that they didn't all die, that some chose to hide away on a distant world, erasing their technology and starting over." Alex stared at the image. "You think that world was Earth? That we're descendants of these progenitors?" "The genetic markers are too similar to ignore," Xin Terra said. "And the cultural echoes in your ancient sites. Patterns that match ruins on worlds thousands of light years from Earth. Patterns your ancestors couldn't possibly have seen." She showed them more data. Comparisons between human DNA and fragments of progenitor genetic code recovered from ancient sites. The match was over 99%. "If this is true," Gary said, "why hasn't anyone else figured it out? Some suspect, but lack proof. Others refuse to consider it. The implications would be unsettling for many species." "What implications?" Eric asked. "The progenitors didn't just seed life. They engineered most of the current galactic species. If humans are their descendants..." She left the thought unfinished. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Xin Terra looked up in alarm. "Someone's detected our access." Red lights flashed as she quickly shut down the system. "We must leave immediately." As they turned to flee, the door slid open. A group of security officers stood there, weapons raised. Behind them loomed a tall, gray-skinned alien with yellow eyes. "How interesting," he said coldly. High Counselor Drath of the Kral Dominion requests your immediate presence, all of you. Zin-Terra whispered to Alex, say nothing of what you've learned. The Kral were servant species to the progenitors. They have the most to lose if the truth emerges. Guards surrounded them as they were led away from the ancient archive, the secrets of humanity's true origins locked behind them once more. High Counselor Drath's private chamber was cold and dimly lit. The walls were decorated with weapons from a dozen worlds. Captain Morgan, Eric, and Gary stood in the center of the room, while Zin-Terra was held separately. Accessing restricted archives is a serious offense, Drath said, his yellow eyes fixed on the humans. I wonder what you hope to find there. We were invited by Keeper Zin-Terra for a cultural exchange. Alex replied carefully. We had no idea the area was restricted. Drath's lips curled into what might have been a smile. Of course, a simple misunderstanding. He walked slowly around them. Curious, though, that your cultural exchange required the oldest section of the archives, the section containing our earliest histories. None of the humans responded. Eric kept his eyes on the floor, afraid his face would give away too much. You are free to return to your quarters, Drath finally said. Keeper Zin-Terra will remain for further questioning. These are dangerous times to be spreading misinformation. As guards escorted them out, Alex whispered, What about Zin-Terra? There's nothing we can do for her now, Gary replied quietly. We need to get back to our ship. But when they reached the docking bay, they found their shuttle's engines dismantled. A maintenance worker approached. Technical issues, he explained. It will take at least 3 days to repair. Back in their quarters, they gathered close and spoke in hushed tones. This is no coincidence, Alex said. They're keeping us here while they decide what to do with us. And with Earth, Eric added grimly. If humans really are descendants of these progenitors, some species might see us as a threat. Their door chimed. They fell silent as Alex opened it. Officer Lisa Campbell, their communication specialist who had remained on their ship in orbit, stood there with red-rimmed eyes. Thank goodness you're all okay, she said, rushing inside. Our communications with Earth just went completely dark. No explanation. I can't reach anyone. Gary pulled out a small device. Let's scan for bugs before we talk. After a thorough sweep, he nodded. It's clean. Lisa continued. I think something big is happening. There's been unusual ship movement around the station. Military vessels. We need to get back to our ship. Alex decided. Lisa, can you get a message to Engineer Wright? Tell him to be ready for emergency departure. Lisa shook her head. They're monitoring all official communications, but she pulled out a small device. I found a backdoor into their network. Paul helped me build it. We can bypass their systems. Over the next few hours, Lisa and Gary worked together on the alien network, while Alex and Eric kept watch. I'm in, Lisa finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Oh no. The others gathered around her screen. It showed military orders translated into English by their device. Plans for a containment operation targeting Earth. The orders mentioned genetic sampling and memory suppression for the human population. This is a sterilization plan, Gary said, his face pale. They're going to wipe out our history, maybe alter our genetics to remove any connection to the progenitors. Look at the signature, Eric pointed. Counselor Drath. He's behind this. We need to warn Earth, Alex said. There's more. Lisa continued scrolling. A second set of orders about a planet called Sanctuary. It says possible progenitor site. Investigate and destroy. That could be important, Eric said. If there's a progenitor site still intact, it might hold technology or information that could help us. First, we need to escape, Alex decided. Lisa, can you create a distraction in the station systems? She nodded. I can trigger emergency protocols in several sectors. It would create enough chaos for us to reach the ship. We'll need to rescue Zin-Terra too, Eric insisted. "She's the only one who can help us find this sanctuary planet." Alex looked at each of them, then nodded firmly. "We leave in 2 hours. Pack only what you need, and prepare for a fight. I don't think they'll let us go easily." As they prepared, emergency alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Lissa looked up from her device in confusion. That wasn't me. The station shuddered violently. Something was happening. Something they hadn't planned for. The station rocked again. Alex grabbed the wall to steady himself. "Something's attacking the station," Lisa said, checking her device. "Multiple ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're firing on the military vessels." Who would attack a Galactic Council station? Gary wondered. The door to their quarters slid open. Zintara stood there, her clothes torn and a fresh cut on her face. Behind her was XL Thor, his crystalline features set in a grim expression. "We must leave now," Xelthor said. "I have a ship ready." "What's happening?" Alex demanded. "Civil war," Zintara explained as they hurried through the corridors. "News of what we discovered has spread. Some council members support Drath's plan to contain Earth. Others oppose it." People ran in all directions as they made their way to a small docking bay. A sleek ship waited there, engines already running. "This will take us to Sanctuary," Selfor said as they boarded. "It's the only safe place now." Once they were safely away from the station, Engineer Paul Wright joined them in the ship's main cabin. He had been waiting on board. "Someone leaked information about humans being progenitor descendants," he explained. "Half the galactic species are terrified, the other half fascinated. The Krail and their allies have already launched ships toward Earth. We have to warn our people," Alex said. "We can't reach Earth directly," Selfor replied. "But Sanctuary might offer a solution. It's mentioned in the oldest records as a progenitor outpost, if anything of their technology remains." The journey took 3 days. They arrived at a small, unremarkable planet with vast oceans and 2 small continents. From orbit, it looked empty. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Eric asked as their ship descended toward the larger continent. Zintara nodded. The coordinates matched the records exactly. They landed in a grassy field surrounded by gentle hills. Nothing seemed special about this place. No buildings, no signs of civilization. "Now what?" Gary asked, looking around at the empty landscape. Zintara turned to the humans. "The record said only those of progenitor blood could find the entrance, if you truly are their descendants." The 5 humans spread out, walking carefully across the field. Lisa was the first to notice something strange. "The grass here. It's growing in perfect lines." Eric knelt down, examining the ground. "These aren't natural patterns. It's almost like circuit paths," Paul finished, excitement building in his voice. Alex felt drawn to a specific spot near the center of the field. As he approached, the ground beneath his feet began to glow faintly. Each step he took created ripples of soft blue light. The others watched in amazement. When Alex reached the center, he stopped, unsure what to do next. Acting on instinct, he placed his palm flat against the ground. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the earth began to shift, pulling apart to reveal a staircase leading down into darkness. "It recognized your DNA," Zintara whispered, just as the ancient texts described. They descended cautiously. The stairs led to a vast underground chamber that lit up as they entered. The walls were covered in the same symbols they had seen in the archives. In the center stood a raised platform with a strange device. "This is progenitor technology," Selfor said in awe, "untouched for 50,000 years." As Alex approached the central platform, a beam of light shot out, scanning him from head to toe. Then a voice spoke, the words somehow clear in their minds despite having no sound. "Genetic match confirmed. Progenitor lineage intact. Welcome, descendants." A holographic figure appeared, a being that looked almost exactly human. It wore simple clothing, but its eyes held wisdom beyond anything they had seen before. "I am Sentinel, guardian of this facility," it said. "You have questions about your origins, about why the galaxy fears the return of the progenitors." "Yes," Alex said simply. "Then it is time you learned the truth," Sentinel replied. "Your people did not evolve on Earth. They chose to live there, to forget their past, to begin again as a simple species. And there was a reason for this choice, a reason that affects every living being in the galaxy." The hologram waved its hand, and the room transformed into a three-dimensional map of the Milky Way, with thousands of stars lighting up in sequence. "This is your history," Sentinel said. "The history you chose to forget." The holographic map spun slowly as Sentinel began to speak. Stars and planets glowed and faded as the story unfolded. 10 million years ago, the progenitors evolved on a world they called First Home, Sentinel explained. They developed faster than light travel and began exploring the galaxy. They found many worlds with simple life, but no other intelligent species. Images showed beings that looked human traveling between worlds, building cities among the stars. The progenitors decided to help life evolve. Sentinel continued. They seeded thousands of worlds with genetic material. They guided evolution on hundreds of planets. They created the ancestors of most intelligent species in the galaxy today. "Including the Krull?" Gary asked. "Yes. The Krull were among the first successes. They were designed to be strong and adaptable. They served as helpers and protectors." The map shifted to show a large area of stars turning red. But around 70,000 years ago, something changed. A group of progenitors began to see themselves as gods. They believed they should rule over the species they had created. War broke out among the progenitors themselves. This war lasted for 20,000 years and devastated half the galaxy. The humans watched in silence as stars winked out one by one, representing worlds lost in this ancient conflict. In the end, those who wanted peace won, but at a terrible cost. The progenitor civilization was in ruins. Many of their greatest achievements were lost. The survivors made a difficult choice. Sentinel paused, looking directly at Alex. They decided their civilization had grown too powerful too quickly. They chose to start over, to evolve again more naturally, to learn wisdom along with knowledge. "So they came to Earth," Eric said quietly. Yes, Earth was a world they had seeded with life millions of years earlier, but had left untouched. The last progenitors used a special technology to erase their memories and alter their bodies slightly. They became your earliest ancestors, with no knowledge of their past. But why not just live peacefully with their technology intact? Lisa asked. "Because the war had awakened something dangerous," Sentinel replied. "Something the progenitors themselves had created and could no longer control. They needed to hide, to disappear completely, until the danger passed." "What danger?" Alex demanded. Before Sentinel could answer, Paul interrupted. "Wait. If all this is true, why are we starting to remember now? Why did you activate for us?" "The facility contains a network of dormant nodes placed across Earth before the progenitors' memories were erased," Sentinel explained. "These nodes were programmed to activate when certain conditions were met, when humans rediscovered faster-than-light travel and made contact with the galactic community." Sentinel touched the holographic console, and a new image appeared. Earth, with thousands of tiny points of light scattered across its surface. These nodes are designed to gradually unlock the ancestral memory in humans. The process has already begun. "What do you mean?" Eric asked. "Even now, humans across Earth are starting to remember skills and knowledge they never learned in this lifetime. The collective wisdom of the progenitors is awakening in your species." Back on Earth, strange things were happening. In a small farm in Iowa, Nancy Carter stared at her hands in shock. She had just built a working anti-gravity device from spare tractor parts, though she had never studied physics. In a village in Kenya, a young teacher named John Mwangi suddenly understood the mathematical principle that unified all forces in the universe. In Tokyo, A taxi driver named Kenji Yamamoto began drawing detailed plans for a faster-than-light communication system. All across the planet, ordinary people were remembering extraordinary things. This awakening was meant to happen gradually, Sentinel continued. But the Krall have detected it. They remember the old wars. They fear what humans might become if they reclaim their heritage. That's why they want to contain us, Alex realized. They're afraid. With good reason, Sentinel said gravely. The last time the progenitors wielded their full power, half the galaxy burned. Alex looked at his friends, then back at Sentinel. How do we stop the Krall fleet? How do we protect Earth? You already have everything you need, Sentinel replied. The knowledge is inside you. You simply need to access it. Sentinel placed a hand on the console. I can help speed up the process. But I must warn you, once started, it cannot be stopped. The memories will come whether you want them or not. All of them, the glory and the horror. Alex looked at the others. They nodded in agreement. Do it, he said. Sentinel placed both hands on the central console. Energy pulsed through the floor and up the walls. A bright light filled the chamber, and the humans felt a strange tingling sensation spread throughout their bodies. I have activated the global network, Sentinel said. All nodes on Earth are now transmitting at full power. The awakening will happen within hours instead of years. Alex clutched his head as images flashed through his mind. Stars seen from unfamiliar worlds, technologies beyond anything humans had built, faces of people he had never met but somehow knew. We need to return to Earth, he said, his voice stronger and more certain than before. Our people will be confused and frightened by what's happening to them. The Krall fleet will reach Earth in 2 days. Selthor warned. Even with your awakening memories, you have no ships that can fight them. Eric's eyes suddenly widened. But we do, he said. Sentinel, are there any progenitor vessels stored here? Yes. This facility maintains a small defense fleet. They have been dormant for 50,000 years, but should still function. Paul looked at his hands in wonder as new knowledge flooded his mind. I know how to fly them, he said in amazement. I can see the controls in my mind. Within hours, they were aboard a sleek, silver ship unlike anything built by modern humans. Paul sat at the controls, his fingers moving with confidence over panels that responded to his touch. We'll reach Earth in 18 hours, he said, faster than the Krall ships. As they traveled, more memories surfaced. Lissa discovered she knew how to operate the ship's communication system. She sent a message ahead to Earth, explaining what was happening, trying to prepare people for the changes they were experiencing. On Earth, chaos and wonder mixed. People everywhere were remembering things, languages they had never learned, scientific principles not yet discovered, histories of worlds they had never seen. Some were frightened, others excited. Governments struggled to maintain order as ordinary citizens suddenly demonstrated extraordinary abilities. Nancy Carter, the farmer from Iowa, had built a working defense shield that now protected her entire county. John Mwangi had organized a group to construct communication towers that could reach the approaching human ship. All across the planet, humans were using their newly awakened knowledge to prepare. When the progenitor ship appeared in Earth's orbit, it was greeted not with fear, but with recognition. Thousands of amateur radio operators worldwide sent messages in an ancient language none of them had known days before. The Krall fleet is 12 hours behind us, Gary said, checking the ship's sensors. We need to coordinate Earth's defenses now. Using the ship's advanced systems, they linked with the makeshift defense network that had spontaneously formed on Earth. People who had been accountants and teachers days ago were now organizing planetary defenses with the skill of veteran commanders. From orbit, Alex addressed the United Nations through a special broadcast. We are not newcomers to the stars, he told them. We are the oldest surviving species in the galaxy. We chose to forget our past, to grow again with new wisdom. But now we must remember, because those we once created now threaten our existence. He explained the truth about human origins and the approaching danger. Instead of panic, his words were met with a strange calm. People already knew, deep in their newly awakened memories, that what he said was true. When the Krail fleet arrived, they expected to find a primitive world ripe for conquest. Instead, they found Earth surrounded by a defense grid of ancient progenitor design. Thousands of small craft, built in backyards and garages across the planet using remembered knowledge, rose to meet them. Leading them was the ship Alex and his crew had brought from Sanctuary. Now renamed Remembrance, it moved to intercept the Kraul flagship. "Open a channel to High Counselor Drath," Alex ordered. Lisa complied, and soon Drath's gray face appeared on the main screen. His yellow eyes widened in shock as he recognized the ship design. "Impossible," the Kraul leader whispered. "Those ships were all destroyed." "Not all of them," Alex replied. "And neither were we. The progenitors didn't die out, Counselor. They chose to forget. Now we remember everything, including what you were before we made you what you are." Drath's face paled. "You cannot prove any of this to the galaxy." "Actually," Alex said, "we already have." As Alex spoke, Lisa had been broadcasting their conversation throughout the galaxy using the ancient progenitor communication network. The truth about human origins reached every corner of known space within minutes. "Stand down, Counselor," Alex said firmly. "This war is already over." For a tense moment, the Krell fleet held position. Then, one by one, ships began to withdraw. Not all. Some remained, weapons still locked on Earth. Drath's face showed rage and fear in equal measure. "The progenitors nearly destroyed themselves," he said. "They nearly destroyed us all. Do you think the galaxy will simply welcome you back?" "We're not asking for rule or worship," Alex replied. "We're asking for the same respect given to any species. We'll face our history, all of it, good and bad, but we won't be erased." On worlds across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. Some species remembered the progenitors as creators and welcomed the news with joy. Others recalled them as terrible masters and prepared for war. Many simply watched in shock as the oldest myths of their civilizations proved true. The Galactic Council fractured, with some members supporting Earth and others calling for human containment. Civil wars erupted on several worlds as different factions chose sides. 1 year later, Alex stood at a window in the newly built Earth Embassy on the rebuilt Galactic Capital Station. Earth had changed beyond recognition. Cities gleamed with a blend of modern human architecture and remembered progenitor design. Ships traveled between stars with ease. But most importantly, humanity had embraced its dual nature, honoring both their recent history of struggle and growth and their ancient legacy. "The new council representatives are arriving," Lisa said, joining Alex at the window. She now served as Earth's communication director, using her awakened abilities to help humans and aliens understand each other. "All of them?" Alex asked. Lisa nodded. "Even the Krall. Their civil war ended last month. The faction that wanted peace won." The door opened and Eric entered. He had spent the past year leading archaeological expeditions that connected human history with galactic records. "It's time," he said. They walked together to the Great Council chamber. Unlike the old council, where members sat according to their species' age and power, the new circular chamber placed everyone at the same level. Representatives from 30 species waited inside, including humans. Dr. Samantha Reeves, now Earth's official representative, rose to speak. "1 year ago, we discovered the truth of our origins. 1 year ago, we nearly went to war. Today, we gather not as creators and created, not as old species and young, but as equals." A Krall representative named Vexstar stood. "My people have struggled to accept this truth. For generations, we saw ourselves as the rightful heirs to the progenitors. To learn that humans are their descendants." He paused. "It has been difficult, but we choose to move forward in peace." Around the chamber, other representatives shared similar sentiments. The wounds were still fresh, but healing had begun. In the years since the awakening, humanity had shown restraint. Despite remembering technologies that could have given them control over the galaxy, they chose cooperation instead. They shared some knowledge while keeping the most dangerous secrets contained. They helped other species recover their own hidden histories. "There is one more matter to discuss," Samantha said when the others had finished. "The ancient records speak of a threat that caused the progenitors to hide. Our recovered memories suggest this threat might still exist beyond the galaxy's edge." The chamber grew quiet. "We propose a joint exploration mission," she continued. "Representatives from all willing species, seeking to find the truth of this ancient danger. And if it still exists," asked a representative from a crystalline species. Alex stepped forward. "Then we face it together," he said, "not as progenitors and created beings, but as a united galaxy." As the council discussed the proposal, Alex slipped away to a quiet balcony. Below him stretched the rebuilt station, with ships from dozens of worlds docked peacefully together. Gary joined him there. "Quite a change from when they thought we were just newcomers," he said. Alex nodded. "We've come full circle. Our ancestors forgot their past to start fresh, to grow in a different way. Now we remember, but we're not the same people we were before. We've learned something they never did." "What's that?" Gary asked. Alex watched as a human ship docked alongside vessels from worlds that had been enemies a year before. "How to live as equals," he said. "Not gods or rulers, just fellow travelers among the stars." Above them, the ancient stars shone on, witness to a new chapter in the oldest story in the galaxy.